Well, on that note, let's bring in Jonathan Krinsky now. He's the chief market technician at Crest. He has a new call today that I think a lot of you are going to find interesting. It's be careful chasing the Nasdaq here. He thinks we're close to a peak, at least in the short term. Why do you think that, JK?
Hey, Scott. Well, we should note that we were just on with you a couple days ago talking about the breakout in small caps and the potential for year-end strength in biotech, and we still think that's the case. So we don't want to make this as a big broad market call, but I think specifically when it comes to the Nasdaq 100, we're at a point where the risk reward is extremely poor. And we think you're going to get a better entry point. And just a couple of the things we're looking at, you can look at the spread of the Nasdaq to its 20-day moving average. It's about 5.5%. That's really the widest it's been in the last year. The only other time that was around that was in April, and we did see a bit of a sideways to down, about 8% pullback back in April. We're also up 9 days in a row, 15 of the last 17 days, and we're up about 11% over that stretch. That's the biggest 16-day gain into a new high that we've seen since September of 2020. If you remember, September of 2020 was kind of that little blow off in the Nasdaq. So, we think this sets up for that rotation that a lot of people have been looking for, including ourselves, into some of the other areas of the market, i.e. small caps. And we think small caps can actually go higher even as Nasdaq goes lower. We saw that earlier this year in February and March.
I hear you, but look, you cite the winning streak as a possible negative. Maybe it's a little tired. I would come back to you and say, why get in front of the momentum like that, right? Because if you've got such a freight train going forward, why get in front of that? And look at what the 10-year is doing today. The market seems to be digesting very, very well what Powell and company, Jay Powell, the Fed chair, had to say yesterday. Isn't that a reason that tells you specifically, and the price action in the Nasdaq today tells you to stay with tech?
Yeah, and again, we've talked about this in the show a lot. A lot of it comes down to time frame and what you're doing. It doesn't mean you have to, go out and short the Nasdaq. But I think if you look at certain names, you guys have been talking about NVIDIA. NVIDIA is about 33% above its 50-day. That's about the widest it's ever been. And so the question is, here and now, is this a spot where you want to be putting a lot of new capital into a name like that? And we would say no. We would say you're going to get a better entry point in the days and weeks ahead. You can also look at sentiment, and certain indicators, certain surveys are about heading back towards the most optimistic levels we've seen in quite some time. So I think when you put it all together, I get it. It's hard to stand in front of this momentum, but we just think we've seen this before, and you tend to get pullback or consolidation from these type of metrics.